Hi, how you going? Steve Barker from I'm Enough Coaching, and today I've come to talk to you about the 6 core needs of the ego. That's right, our ego actually has needs as well as we do. Now, let's be clear, when I talk about the ego, what I'm not talking about is the type of ego that needs to drive up and down the main street with the music going, doof, 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 doof. Everybody look at me, aren't I cool? It's not that ego at all. The ego that I want to talk to you today about is the ego that needs to keep us safe. Now, this was back in the day when we were chasing saber-toothed tigers for shits and giggles. We needed to be able to respond and react very, very quickly. It was dangerous. It was an awful environment. We could be out hunting and we could hear a rustle in the bushes, and that could be the saber-toothed tiger actually hunting us. So our ego needed to keep us safe. It needed to be very switched on and very, very acute. Now, we still need our ego in this modern day world. We still need to know when we're not feeling safe, when we need to judge things to make sure that they are safe. But the ego has kind of developed into a really needy monster, and it's a great filter to be able to understand the type of language that we're using, where we're coming from, and also to be able to calibrate other people as well. So we can use the needs of the ego, once we're aware of them, to be able to calibrate ourselves, calibrate other people, and to be able to join in and have conversations at the correct level rather than mismatching all the time and, going either over or under and just meeting on that level of frustration and then having a conversation there. So when we're aware of the needs of the ego, that's when we can actually calibrate and understand. But until we know what we know, we don't know anything. So I just wanted to share this with you today about the needs of the ego. And the first need of the ego is the need to know. So these are quite funny, actually. When you start to look at the needs of the ego, they become quite funny. So we need to know. We need to know information. We need to know sometimes more information than we really should. When we get involved in tittle-tattle or, did you hear what so-and-so said? No, tell me more. We're feeding the need for the ego because, very much like I say, we want to be kept safe. But when we feel that the environment around us isn't safe or we're going to be judged, then we need to be able to validate ourselves that we are worthy, that we are enough. And generally, when we start to operate from the need of the ego, it's because we're feeling a little bit threatened, we feel that we're not enough, or we just need to validate or justify ourselves. So the need to know in that environment is, tell me more, tell me more, tell me what happened. Because then you can calibrate or judge yourself against that other person. You can compare yourself to that other person and go, do you know what? My life's much better than theirs. And you can go on from there and you can go, well, I would never have done that. Or, oh my God, he did what? Really? And we go into all of these sort of things here. So the need to know can come from ego. Now, as I say, there are times when we do need to know. We need to know where the fire exits are. We need to know when this happens. We need to know what this happens. We need to know this. We need to know that. But when we're just getting idle gossip or chit-chat or we're trying to find out something that really isn't our business, that's when we're coming from the ego. And if you hear that in other conversations, it's where other people are coming from as well. So the second need, number 2, is the need to judge. Yeah? The need to judge. Told you, you'll love them. You'll resonate with these all the time. The need to judge. So we do judge people. Again, in the real world, where we need to judge, is it safe? Is this person safe? Can I trust this person? Yes, that's a real need. But when we judge other people, just from the point of view of how do they compare to me? And I've shared this story many times. The first time I really caught myself judging was when I was in the UK, back in the military, and I was in uniform, and a young man walked in, and he had those big hoopy earrings, the ones? And he was covered in tattoos, and he had sort of pink and orange hair going on. And I just looked at him and went, really? Mate, you could probably be doing so much more with your life. Look at me, I'm in the military, real wankery type thinking. And this is where it sort of really clicked in with me, and I was like, really? Is this what I'm doing? And I was judging this young man and comparing myself to him and proving that, trying to prove to myself that I was much better. And I just thought to myself, wow, what happens if this bloke actually turns around and thinks, there's a baby killer there, there's a murderer, there's a warmongerer. And I thought, whoa, hang on a minute. I'm not those sort of people. I'm not that person. And then all of a sudden I thought, God, who are you to judge? And it was the first time in my life that I really sort of thought about it and saw the impact. And from that point on, I promised myself I would never judge. I didn't realise until, I learned about the needs of the ego that all I was doing was just fulfilling the needs of my ego. And, that was what was going on. But it was a horrible thing to experience and something that I thought, wow, that's kind of wrong. So that's number 2, the need to judge. Number 3, I can't do number 3 because my little finger doesn't work, so I'll do that, is the need to justify. We like to justify things. And a great example of this is when we're late. If we turn up and we're late, we don't just say, hi, sorry I'm late, and leave it at that. What we do is we put a little reason on the end of it, like a little excuse. Oh, sorry I'm late, traffic was heavy. Sorry I'm late, had a phone call. Sorry I'm late, I couldn't get the kids to school on time. Whatever it is, that little bit of justification right there is the ego coming in, because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be seen as not enough. You don't want to be seen as the person who's rude and can't organise themselves. So what we do is we just put a little excuse on, just a little blame on something so that we can justify the reason why we're late. Now, if we owned that situation, if we really owned it, we wouldn't be late, because it's a lack of planning upon our behalf. If you didn't get the kids to school on time, maybe get up a little bit earlier with them. Make sure that they're doing what they're doing. If they're not doing it, then instill some discipline somewhere along the line, in other ways. If we're late because we've overrun in another meeting, again, it's lack of planning on our behalf. Have the courage to stand up and say, excuse me, I need to leave. I've got another meeting. I wasn't expecting this one to go on as long as it does. All these sort of things, when we own the situation, then we don't feel the need to justify. I still do it. I still turn up late sometimes at appointments, and I try not to do it. I'm my very best to try not to do it, but sometimes I do. And really, it's because I haven't allowed enough time for my journey. So when I turn up, I just say, sorry, I'm late. I didn't plan properly. And that's owning that shit. That's not justifying it, as the need of the ego would do. It's actually owning it. So when we hear people say, sorry, I'm late, it's because blah, 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 and it's a bit of an excuse, then we know that they're coming from the ego. They're coming from something that they feel the need to be safe, that they're going to be judged or be seen as not enough. So that's number 3. Number 4 is the need to be right. This plays out in a funny little way. So you've probably been part of these conversations, or you've been part of this sort of this conversation or storytelling, where one person will be telling a story. Normally, husband and wife is a good example. The wife will be regaling a story around something that happened at Christmas, and she'll say, oh, do you remember this, Barry? This happened at Christmas, blah, 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 blah. And Barry will jump in and go, no, I think it was Easter. And then the wife will go, no, I'm sure it's Christmas. And then he'll be like, no, it was definitely Easter, because, again, the justification comes in. And what we see here is the need to be right. The rest of the people at the dinner party or who are listening to the story are going, I don't give a shit whether it's Christmas or Easter, just tell us the story. But there's this need to be right, because they don't want to be seen as being wrong, because when we're wrong, in the eyes of the ego, it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of not being enough, and it can, it doesn't sit comfortably with us. So when we feel the need to be right, we come back to the justification, but we will argue that black is white. Sometimes we'll put ourselves in a situation where we will argue that, something that we know is wrong is right, just because of this need of the ego. So when we hear this, or when we see other people doing this, we're generally coming from an area around the ego. Now, that's number 4. Number 5, and this is a good one, is the need to look good. We all want to look good. We all want to feel great. We all want to be, seen as enough. And we do this with fashion. We do this with hair. We do this with houses, with styles of clothes and all this sort of stuff. It's the need to look good. We don't want to turn up looking shabby. And very often when we're judging people, it's around what they're wearing. And I've heard plenty of comments of, oh my God, did he actually look in the mirror this morning when he put that shirt on? What was she thinking when she was wearing that? And things like that. So that's where the judgment comes in. But it's the need to look good. It's also the need for us to, bolster our stories. To sometimes we will embellish the truth so that it sounds better. So it makes us sound greater than we actually are. And this is, again, the need to look good. We want to look good in front of other people. We want to be the person that we say we're going to be. We want to be well, you know, there I was driving at 50 kilometers an hour and da-da-da-da happened. And then the next time you say it, there I was driving along at 55 kilometers an hour, da-da-da-da-da happened. And all you're doing is embellishing the story just to make it even more dramatic, to make you look even greater, the bigger the hero, all that sort of stuff. So that's the need to look good. And then the final one, and this is a funny one as well. Number 6, the 6 core needs of the ego. This is the need to get even. This is where the karma train comes along. All aboard the karma train, choo choo. I love this when I hear it, because people will say, "Ah, that's it, karma's got them." No, it hasn't. This is just your need to get even because you felt that you've been wronged, or you've had a boundary broken, or that you've been violated in some way, and you haven't enforced that boundary properly. You feel guilty because you haven't enforced a boundary, so you expect the karma train to get them, or you will go out of your way to upset the apple cart, or to unbalance things in some way. You'll start to sabotage events and things like this for other people, and this is because you feel the need to get even. And that's generally because you haven't enforced a boundary properly. And I do a lot of work around boundaries with my clients and stuff like that. So if you're interested in learning more about boundaries, please get in contact with me. But yes, the need to get even. Like I say, people think of the karma train. No, life really is a series of peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs. I am sure yourself have been through many of these peaks and troughs. Yeah? And when the karma train comes, what we're doing is we're looking for evidence that karma is going to sort these people out. Really, all they're doing is just going into one of these troughs like everybody else does. There's no such thing as karma. It's absolute bullshit. Okay? But we use that as an excuse for the ego, for us to feel good, for us to feel better about something that we didn't really enforce in the first place. And that's where karma comes from. So, we need to be really careful what we talk about, because are we coming from our natural selves, or are we coming from this ego? The ego that is there to keep us safe. So I want you to question this. I want you to sit with this and think about it, because it can be really important. It's a great way to be able to calibrate what's going on. And when I started this video, it was nice and quiet, but the neighbours have now come and turned their air conditioning on, and it's all getting loud and noisy in the background. So I'm going to say cheerio. Leave it with you there. If you've got any question, please hit me up. Let me know your thoughts and comments around the needs of the ego, and I'll speak to you again soon. My name's Steve from I'm Enough Coaching. Have a wonderful day, whatever it is you're up to. Take care.